but when he lies a lot, and most NFL coaches do.
Oh, no, there's no doubt about it. A lot of them do. The interesting thing is sometimes you will see coaches that you think are completely honest, and they're doing very well in the league. And I think a lot of coaches in this league believe that they have to lie to hide information from other teams, whether it's injuries or here's where we think we can attack this team.
Usually injuries.
Usually injuries. And some of the coaches have come out on a Tuesday or Wednesday and said whether a player is going to play or not. Ultimately, I think the other team knows. I mean, generally,
either knows or they're not going to believe whatever you say anyway.
And it might not be that big of a difference anyways between the starter and the backup person. Well, in this, in the Patriots game, there was a big. I mean, Xavier Rhodes being out, and then Trey Waynes out. Or Rhodes limited, and Waynes getting hurt. I mean, when you're down to Marcus Sherrills and Holton Hill as your outside cornerbacks, that's not a good situation. And, I was actually surprised it took the Patriots as long to attack them deep as it did.
Absolutely. Shocking stat about Mike Zimmer coming up. We do want to thank fixologyrepair.com. Fixology Repair, third floor of the Mall of America by Nordstrom's, also downtown in the Skyway, just south of the Wells Fargo Center. John Hedges is a friend of the network. He also sponsors the Russo Show and comes out to live shows whenever he can. And right now he's partnered with Seiko. He has doubled his Seiko inventory. He has a full assortment of Pulsar watches. And now Kenneth Cole and Guess watches are marked down for the holidays. Great place to buy gifts, accessories, to get your tablet or your phone fixed. It's pretty much full service in 2 different locations, fixologyrepair.com.
There are some things in life that you just can't live without. Now, whether it's a special piece of jewelry, a watch, or even your smartphone, you want it in working condition. At Fixology Repair, we are committed to restoring your pieces so that everything works or fits the way it ought to. Watch servicing, chain repair, and broken screen replacements are just a few of the services that we offer at Mall of America. Please visit us at fixologyrepair.com or at FixologyMN on Twitter to learn more. Mention this ad and get a 10% discount on our services.
So Mike McCarthy gets fired, and suddenly we don't know any of these coaches in this division anymore.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it till it was brought up in Monday's press conference. Zimmer is the only coach in the NFC North now that was there last year.
Yep.
Last year. And,
that's amazing.
He was asked about it and said, he said he thought McCarthy, the firing there was a mistake. I don't think it was a mistake. I think it was something that had to happen. Now, you can argue whether it should have happened during the season or after the season.
That's the point Jeff Diamond made on our show this week, is he thought it was really the opposite of classy to fire McCarthy during the middle of the season. You're basically kind of scapegoating him. You're kind of embarrassing him, and you're really not gaining anything by firing him at this point.
Well, I would disagree on one point. I think you are gaining something by firing him at this point, and that is you're getting Aaron Rodgers back to looking like he wants to. I felt like Rodgers for sure in the Arizona game and somewhat in the Vikings game. He looked like he was just beaten down, didn't have any confidence in the offense and what was being called. And, unfortunately, if you have those top 5 type paid quarterbacks, they're always going to win when it comes down to a dispute between the coach and the quarterback. First of all, the coach isn't making as much as the quarterback. Secondly, the coach's salary doesn't count against the salary cap. And if you're cutting a quarterback, I need you're not cutting Aaron Rodgers. So
I need you and John, you and Jeff Diamond to start this out.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you guys together.
All right.
Might come to blows.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
He was
We're
very
both
angry
very
about it. You're both very.
Was he really?
He was kind of offended. He's a guy who used to run the team. He just felt like it was the wrong thing to do. But he agrees with you that the Aaron Rodgers piece is interesting, and of course that led to another coach getting fired.
Oh man, sometimes I'm surprised that any coach in the NFL actually has a Twitter account. But Winston Moss tweets out that, okay, McCarthy's fired. Now it's time for Aaron Rodgers to start being held accountable, which I don't disagree with that either.
No.
But as a coach, what are you doing by tweeting that out? Now all of a sudden you've taken a team that I think was pretty fractured and had a chance to come back together, and you're kind of throwing this knife back in the back of Aaron Rodgers. You know, he might be right, but you don't say that, especially during the season, and expect good results to come. Maybe he was trying to get fired. Maybe he was, so indebted to Mike McCarthy that he felt like he had to, stick up for his guy that just got canned. But I was flabbergasted that a coach would tweet that, and whether he's right or wrong.
My Green Bay spies say that Winston Moss has been a really weird guy to be around. They
right?
basically stopped having him do podium interviews because they were so awkward.
Oh, yeah,
so,
right.
So I don't think I just don't think he's a good communicator, and he screwed up in multiple ways there. I'm not sure it should have cost him his job, but it was going to. It was always going to.
Yep. Well, sticking with coaches for a bit, I find it ironic and very, very Minnesotan that we enter the season with all these high expectations. John DeFilippo is gonna change the way this offense is run. And by the way, it wasn't run very. It's not like things weren't going well last year. So, I think Pat Shurmur deserves some credit for that.
Agreed.
But everybody went into the season going, okay, so we got this great coordinator. Oh, now we're going to lose him. He's going to become a head coach. And now
I remember the same thing being said about Tim Brewster, Richard Pitino, Glenn Mason. People. I swear to God, if PJ Fleck had won one more game the last couple of years, people would be worried about him leaving right now.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
It's how we do.
Yeah, it is. But I think what people get so caught up in, and this goes for players too. Fans in whatever market see their players and they think that that's the best player at that position. If they're a good player, maybe even a great player, but they think automatically that guy is far and away the best in the league at that position, and he's the only guy that could possibly do it. I mean, we don't have to look much further than Jimmy Butler to see that. Everybody's saying, when he's in Minnesota, the Minnesotans are saying, top 5 player. Mm-hmm. And now that he's gone, well, we needed more of a team approach, But, I mean, it's kind of the same thing with coaches. Okay, so where were people saying this about Pat Shurmur? And he did end up becoming a head coach. DeFilippo comes in here, and I still think he's got a chance to be a head coach after this season. But the ups and downs and the changing of opinions about – we should just fire him, and we should just get rid of half of the team, and this naming off a dozen players that they should.
Why
get rid
people
of.
ripping the offensive line this week, and I just didn't think that that's a sore spot.
Absolutely,
but not this week.
No, and I totally agree, and I think it's because it's become their mantra.
It's the go-to.
Yeah, that anytime the offense isn't playing well, it's the offensive line's fault, and I would grant you, I'm one of the guys kind of out there most of the season going, the offensive line's the weakness of this team. And they have been. But it wasn't the weakness of the team on Sunday. Kirk Cousins had a lot of time to sit back there and throw, and he was barely touched. And the couple times he was, some of them were his fault for hanging onto the ball too long. So I would just encourage people, before you automatically assign blame, go back and look at things a little bit.
Absolutely. Let's go to our Hurry Up Offense, hit you with some stats and some observations. Do want to thank Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent in Champlin, HOAGLUND, sponsors this program, sponsors the Russo Show, sponsors the Roy Smalley Show, and also contributes to the Minnesota Sports Fan Podcast, which is a lot of fun. Check out Tony at just Google him, HOAGLUND, not the poet. The poet's going to pop up. You don't want the poet. He's not going to handle your insurance well. You want the insurance agent.
Hey, Minnesota sports fans. This is your local State Farm agent, Tony Hoagland. I need you all to ask yourselves this question. If you're in an at-fault car accident and you are sued for $700,000, how much of that $700,000 will my current insurance company pay? If you are unsure or can't answer all $700,000, you need to give us a call. State Farm has been number one in car insurance since World War II and number one in homeowners insurance since 1964. For a no-obligation review of your current policies, call us at 763-421-4900 or check out our website at www.champlininsurance.com.
All right. Give me a cousin stat.
Cousin stat. Which one did I have in here?
Okay, I'll help you.
Yeah. Well, I already mentioned that one. So
Okay.
I was 3 of the first 5 games. With
You don't expect me to listen to the program, do you?
I'm sorry. With the phone in hand, Jim doesn't listen very well.
I'm just doing my Russo impersonation.
Oh my God! I can only imagine that
He doesn't listen to a word I'm saying.
That's kind of what
talks.
makes that one comical.
Yes, exactly. All right, give me something on Mike Priefer.
Well, here's the thing. The Vikings thought that they had their kicker situation figured out with Dan Bailey after the Blair Walsh problems and Daniel Carlson problems, and they got rid of Kai Forbath, even though you could argue that it was probably the worst time to get rid of Forbath after he kicked what could have been a game winner against New Orleans in the playoffs. Bailey comes in here, and when he came to Minnesota, he was still the second most accurate kicker in NFL history. Now, all of a sudden, he is 16 for 22, and he's 4 for 9 from 40 yards or more. I'm starting to wonder, with Zimmer getting frustrated about certain things, Mike Priefer could be feeling the pressure this year as things develop.
Well, he hasn't really developed a punter who you feel tremendously confident in.
I actually think Matt Weil is probably the best punter that they've had in quite some time. But you could say he didn't develop him.
Right.
Because it's really...
Priefer hasn't had a chance to ruin him yet, I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, he didn't get out on the field right away for that field goal as the holder.
Well, that's a good point.
Oh, man. I haven't heard what happened there. But
I do think if we're gonna talk about whose fault things are, I think Priefer is got to be under the gun at this point.
Well, yeah, I mean the kicker situation with Bailey in the first Green Bay game, disastrous. And then they fire Bailey Carlson. They fire Carlson, get rid of him. He goes out to Oakland, and he was named the special teams player of the week. 2 of the kickers that the Vikings have faced, Mason Crosby has a disastrous week before the Vikings play him, and then he's named this was a couple weeks before the Vikings played him, named special teams player of the week. The Chicago kicker, naming Colby, has a terrible week one week, comes back, and he's named special teams player of the week. And, I'm not blaming Priefer for other kickers doing well against the Vikings. That's, there's not a lot that a special teams coach can do in that instance. But there have also been plays this year where it seems pretty obvious that the opponents could be in a fake punt situation that has not been covered the way it should. When they cross the 50-yard line, the game is kind of close, and, the advantage could possibly only be 20 yards in kicking it if you kick it into the end zone. You should be playing against the fake, and the Vikings got burned once this year not doing that. And the only time that they've really had an explosive kick returner is when they had Cordero Patterson, a first-round pick. So, yeah, I think all of this could be adding up to, if there is a scapegoat for the season, if things don't, if the Vikings don't get into the postseason, Priefer could be the scapegoat.
Absolutely. Seattle is first in rush offense, last in rush defense.
And this, again, is where the Vikings have to go in here prepared to run the ball more. Now, the problem is I think we're going to see Zimmer say that to DiFilippo. DiFilippo listens, and the Patriots know that, or the Seahawks know that, and then maybe counter with a little bit more. But if that happens, you should have Thielen open. You should have Diggs open. So I just think if they can go in there and try to plan for a somewhat balanced run-pass attack, even if it's 60% run, get to that point. At least keep the defense guessing. Seattle has allowed a league worst 5.1 yards per carry. Dalvin Cook should be able to get 5 yards a carry. It's kind of amazing that teams haven't run on the Seahawks more than they have. They have the third lowest total of rushes against them, despite a bad rush defense. Weird. So, yeah, it is all kind of weird. So this should be one of those games where the